Sure.
First of all, welcome everybody for today's webinar. I'm sorry, I'm the old guy still in the seminar. Our topic is tourism and gastronomy, the road ahead. And our guest today, Andrew Jacobs, from the general manager of Maçakızı, and Demirer. He's the CEO of Frankie, Istanbul, and also the president of the Turkish Restaurant and Entertainment Association. My name is Firuz. I'm the managing partner of Pamir and Soyuer.
Hi, everybody.
To start with, I'm going to just start a small, maybe just a couple minutes of the presentation regarding the tourism of today. And then I'll start the conversation and the webinar with our guests. So the current situation, everybody can see right now the graphs?
Yes.
I think, okay, then let's go. Here's the current situation in the tourism industry. Europe, it's almost covering 50% of the total numbers of visitors. So we're right on the middle of this great sector, actually. When you look at these, as Turkey is covering on 3% of the international visitors, being the France is the largest, almost double of Turkey. And when you look at the 2019 numbers of the travel and the tourism industry in the world, it's almost 10% or 10.3% of the total GDP, which will be increased by, is expected to increase by 2030 by 11%. And it's almost 330 million jobs, which is pretty big. And still, if you look at the growth, it's the travel and tourism is one of the top GDP growth of the sectors after information, communication, and financial services. When you look at the breakdown, the sector is international travelers is just 30%, and domestic is 70%. When you look at the business versus leisure, it's 21% is just business, and it's mostly for the leisure. And if you look at this, the performance of the travel and tourism, as you see the Asia part, it's actually increasing much higher than the other part of the world. And when we look at this, the travel and tourism contribution to the GDP, after United States, China, Japan, and Germany, mostly the European the countries is following. When we look at this, the fastest growing country, we can see Turkey is just contributing about 10% of the total GDP, which is pretty high. Please just check these numbers, which is the after COVID, which is a natural disruption. So the jobs that we're looking about 330 million, which is going to decrease at 100 million, which is 31% decrease. It's a pretty huge step. And also the money that was actually lost is pretty high also. It's just 30% down. And this is important. When you look at this, the impact, it's expected that it's going to be the 5 times of the 2008 global financial crisis. So, and also this is just another statistics from the US, and this gives that the unemployment rate is the highest in the leisure and hospitality. And this is the people that also from the US, but also similar to the all of the world, people are still reluctant to go to restaurants and cafes, which is almost 50%. Half of them, it's just reluctant to go. When we go back to Turkey, that's we still have about 11% of the total economy, which having creating a jobs of 2.6 million, and with the impact of the total economy, it's around $41 billion just for international visitors. So if you include those, but the local tourism, it's much higher. But when we look at the Turkish tourism, it's not like the others that we mostly just accommodating the tourists from Germany and Russian Federation. These are the last year's numbers, and the neighboring countries, and our outbound departures is mostly also neighboring countries. When we look at the structure, especially for the leisure spending versus domestic spending, we mostly just accommodating the sun and sea tourism. It's mostly in the Mediterranean region, and this is the one of the maybe just the lack of our our tourism sector or maybe tourism strategy, that we don't have right now a value-added tourism sector. Okay, just a small presentation. After the presentation, let's go for our guests. Andrew, let's start with you. What will be the position of the multinational hotel operators, where both business and leisure travelers numbers will take a long time to recover after COVID? Is there a possibility to resizing or changing their portfolio all over the world, also in Turkey?
Well, I think, also based on some of those numbers that you just quoted, I think, there's a few things that are going to come out of this. I mean, first of all, Turkey's been through many crises in recent years, as everybody knows. I would say more than most countries, and the people here have always been able to rebound fairly quickly. And although this is a much greater crisis, I think the same will be true. I think in my experience here, people are very resilient, and the genuine hospitality of the Turkish people will shine through. Some of the discussions we're already having with agencies at our end of the market, are very positive. And there's a lot of, I think that Turkey will in some ways open up for leisure, slowly but surely. I think, the business is going to be very fractured. I mean, the large hotels in the big cities, I think, will face very different challenges to what we will in the resort areas. And I think the smaller boutique at the high end of the business and at the affordable end of the business, I think actually will have a lot of opportunity to nurture customers, whether they're the local Turkish market or, as slowly comes back, the international market, because I think the smaller operators will be able to give a relative feeling of safety and nurturing much more easily than it's possible in very big hotels. My previous experience was with large city hotels, and I think that those large operators are going to find new ways to be more profitable or have a, let's say, break even at a lower occupancy level, because these giant hotels, without major congress business, without major tour operator business, it will be a big challenge. So I think that'll be a different challenge in the cities as compared to the resorts. And I think another thing that comes out of the numbers that you showed is that we may have an opportunity in the medium term for our friends from Asia, because I think that Asia outbound will probably open up faster than Europe, and that Istanbul and Turkey in general has had some success recently from that part of the world, and I think that we will be one of the desirable destinations for the Asian market.
So do you think that the Asian the people is going to come mostly for Istanbul, or also the other part of our the tourism area, both for historical tourism and then the sea and sun tourism?
I think the good news is for Istanbul is that is a market that will be great for them, because there's many markets that will be impossible in the big cities in the short and medium term. And I think also in the resort areas, we could also get some bounce in from that part of the world. But my feeling is that, you know, our main focus in the next couple of months, at least, once we start to open up, will be for domestic leisure business.
Okay. How about you, Kaya? When we know that besides the hospitality, the gastronomy is a big part of this the tourism activities, especially in the cities, the big cities. But when we look at the last disruption of the COVID, and the people are still reluctant to have to go those restaurants and the food and beverage facilities, and we don't know right now exactly what they're going to do in the short term, mid term, or even in the long term. What do you think about this situation? And I know that you have many work and that you're doing, especially just solidifying a COVID certificate for this hotel. I'm sorry, for the restaurants, and also that you're looking for the food security. You're looking for the traceability of a food chain, and also certification of this traceability. Could you please just inform us about the last the works that you've done with this tourism?
Sure. But before starting on answering the questions you have asked me, I want to contribute to some of Andrew's comments.
Please.
I do think that as a market international, I do agree that domestic tourism will first kick in for our resorts in the south. It can only be followed maybe by June, mid-June, with some international doors. The idea of the certificate that was in the mind of our Ministry of Tourism 2 months ago. He approached to us and he said, if we do not come up and produce a certificate that is internationally acknowledged, which is going to be done by internationally accredited audit companies, it will be not easy to build a safe image as a country on the mindsets of potential incoming tourist markets. Now, to contribute to the Asian market that Andrew has suggested, I think the North Europe is also a very big potential for us. Yes. In fact, I see this as an opportunity for Turkey to actually go back on the scope of this market rather than shifting from the Middle East and Gulf region markets. COVID has asked us to shift our direction on this case. I think Greece and Turkey will have a much higher chance in comparison to Italy and Spain on traveling within or very close boundaries to Europe. That is just a small contribution to what Andrew has suggested.
Thank you.
Regarding the certificate, now you mentioned or you have suggested the words people are reluctant to go to restaurants. They're not reluctant, they can't at the moment go and dine in any restaurant, because unlike hotels and shopping malls and other trade destinations or locations, we have been enforced to lock down our restaurants by law. So the same will happen, and we will rebound only with a new regulation saying you can open. We do not know yet as to when this will be, but I do not think it will be later than somewhere around mid-June, because otherwise the hotels and their restaurants are open, but standalone restaurants are not open. This is going to cause a big, not only injustice, but confusion in the minds of people. But restaurants are tougher than hotels, because when you look at any F&B consumption location, the role and the duty of the government is much higher and riskier in terms of COVID conscious situation than big identities like international hotel brands. So there will be two different documents, one being genelge, which is a must obtain document in order to be able to open our restaurants. The same goes for hotels as well, and it's been announced. If you go to the Ministry of Tourism page, you can find it. It has got a checklist. Those checklists need to be fulfilled for a hotel to reopen their doors with their own will. The certificate is a nice to have document which will give a higher image for safer zones, for COVID-free zones. Same goes for hotels and restaurants. And those certificates will be issued by these internationally accredited independent audit companies. I can give you some names that the Ministry of Tourism is now on negotiation. For all we know, by the end of this week, we can handshake with them. There's a German company called TÜV. There's a French company called Bureau Veritas, an English company called LR, the Lloyd's Register, another German company called Royal Certificate, Royal Cert, and another French company called Merio Nutrosciences Corporation. Now, for all we know, these companies, they're all eager to work with the Ministry of Tourism for this certificate. For all we know, they will all sign for this project. And with only this way, we will have enough people on the field to come and do the audits on behalf of these companies, because these audits will be unannounced audits, and the Ministry of Tourism does require for the certificate to be live at least once a month, unannounced audit by these companies. And there will be a QR code fitted on your entrance of your hotel, Andrew, or
Yep.
maybe some other spots as well, where the interested customer as well can come and read that QR code via his phone, whatever the application she will download, and see at that instant moment where you are with your checklists. So everything will be transparent. And really, I have seen a lot of Minister of Tourisms. This guy is really a hardworking one.
Yeah.
Because he's from the industry, he knows exactly how to approach to situations. And this is a crisis in Chinese. Crisis means Wei Ji. Wei meaning danger and hazard. Ji meaning opportunity. So I think we can use this Chinese word with this Chinese origin virus, COVID, and turn this into an opportunity for the country.
And possibly with the Chinese tourists, I believe.
Yes, in the essence that the Ministry of Tourism, along with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they will, after getting and signing and sealing this certificate, they will start traveling door by door, or do some Zoom traveling for the big tour operators of the main potential countries that we have mentioned. Asia was on the list of the Ministry of Tourism. Northern Europe, Germany is on the list. Russia is still on hold. The idea is to actually get these people, have a test before of their departure on the country of departure area, and then get into the plane, possibly have another test on their arrival, and then with these certificated even transportation, we will allocate them to their hotels. And when they come to restaurants, they will find the same certificate for the restaurants. Okay?
It looks like a great opportunity for
there will be
QR codes.
There will be a remote training program about these checklists. So our staff will be trained before we open, which is an easy 1 week, 10 days program, but they will have an exam and there will be a result of that exam. Again, on that QR code, they will all be transparently visible. After this training and after fulfilling the checklists, the establishments will apply and say, I'm ready to be audited. After they are first audited, they will gain the access for this certificate. And the Ministry of Tourism, along with some governmental organizations, they will update this certificate situation as much as possible so that people can see the current list of the places that are under this certificate. But apart from the certificate, as you mentioned, the food safety and traceability is the other G side of the Chinese word, the opportunity side, because we're working very effectively and constantly with the Food Safety Association in Turkey, and actually making programs with our suppliers so that the same kind of certification goes with the Ministry of Agriculture all the way to the field or to the boat that catches the fish or the shrimp and brings it to all the way to the doorsteps of Andrew. So if we can trace this chain and all certificate everyone that is involved in catching or producing and transporting the food items to our doorsteps, then it will be a 360 degree completion of traceability and production and all the way to the fork from the field. This is out of the jurisdiction of Ministry of Tourism, but within the jurisdiction of Ministry of Agriculture. Once the certificate for the tourism premises is established and announced, we will ask the Ministry of Agriculture, along with the Food Safety Association and along with the suppliers, so that these suppliers can also become a brand identity for what they do. Because it is a matter of building a better image for the end user. The big brands for the time being, whether it's a hotel or a restaurant brand, will give automatically a better, higher mindset for the perception of the individuals, I think, in terms of safety. Let me stop here and wait for your other questions or Andrew's comments so that we make it a dialogue.
Thank you, Kaya.
Just before questions, I mean, Kaya and I have actually talked before about this, and in person as well. And I mean, we certainly welcome all of those initiatives. It's only going to contribute to, the domestic market as well as the soon to come international guests, this feeling of safety, which is going to be paramount to getting things open. So I fully applaud all these initiatives, and we certainly welcome that.
Thank you, Kaya. Andrew, just another question after that you answer about the position of the international the hospitality operators. What do you think about the new business models? What they're going to do? Is they going to stay long or versus a short stay? Or they going to prefer mostly they emphasize in resorts versus city hotels? Or they are going to just get an alliance with the local operators to rebrand their hotels, and then they give the opportunity to just reach the international maybe travelers for the local brands. What do you think about the new kind of trends that in the future? It's not limited just for the COVID I'm talking about. It's just the post-COVID and after the COVID actually that we're talking about.
Well, I mean, there's about 10 issues there. I think it's not a blanket answer really. I think there'll be very different possibilities, segment by segment. Also city versus resort. I think in my experience the biggest challenge in the big cities will be the lack of international congress for I don't know how long. So I think the large hotels will look at many things. Being able to exist with lower occupancy is one. Extended stay, as I think you and I have talked about before. I think that there's opportunities for extended stay in the larger hotels. In resorts, I think we will, again, the challenges and opportunities are different in in Bodrum, for example, than they are in Antalya. I mean, Antalya, to bounce back the large properties, you know, needs major flight incoming, volume business, be it from whichever market, and I'm not sure that that's realistic in the short term. So I think, you know, sadly, some of the operators that have larger properties, maybe the best thing, and that's not my business, but maybe the best thing for them is not to open all of their properties, rather have some hotels, because many of these operators have multi units. You know, rather have one hotel which has decent occupancy than 3 that are almost empty. You know, that's the case in many of those areas. And I think, you know, it's also a mistake to jump too soon. The situation at the end of June may be very different to what it is at the end of July. And again, in September and October, you know, hopefully we'll see some bounce back. So I think, you know, whilst some of the big operators, I guess their first challenge is cash flow, and they'll have to make decisions accordingly, as with the restaurant operators. But, you know, this is probably the immediate challenge, which is more a financial government assistance kind of story, which is probably more in Kaya's court than mine.
I'll give some information on that account. As we all know, tourism and restaurant industry has been listed in the top of the list as the immediate sectors and industries that will get support from governmental credit guaranteed fund. Now, there's very limited access so far. There has been very limited access by the restaurateurs, and to some extent the ones I hear from the hoteliers, to this fund. And this fund, the core aspect of this fund is for the companies, especially mid-sized companies, that has got not enough bank guarantee letter or any other collateral to be able to use this kind of credit line. However, I think the private banking in the sector and also the government banks, they are more looking for people who are in good financial results. But those are not the ones that are needed, that are in need of these credit lines. So I think there is a big tension here. And if we are looking for a rebound on mid-June for the restaurants, majority of them may face of not being able to open because of not being able to reach into these credit lines. The second financial point where we are desperately seeking for an extension to here is the short-term work or short-term employment fund, which is the support government is providing for our workers who are not on full-time employment or not at all employment physically in our places. Now, the rule on that one is if they are not physically actively working in your establishment, but still on your payroll, you stop paying anything. No tax, no net salaries, and the government pays their gross 60% of their gross salary. This goes until mid-June, or to some places, depending on your application date, until the end of June. Now, we have asked for tourism especially to enlarge this, to extend this until the end of September. And we said, under Turkish regulation, it is 45 hours per week that you can employ these people or make them work. If we are going to not deploy any staff, but have only maximum 50% occupation in our restaurants or hotels, then we can make an engineering of working with them for 22 hours a week, or maybe 15 hours a week. And in that essence, the regulation suggests that they pay half of their support. So rather than paying 60% of their gross salary, they will be paying 30% of their gross salary, and you will only be paying half of your duty to your staff, including their taxes. So automatically it can be reduced to 50% of whatever their gross salary is. Of course, for higher salaries, there's a cap, but apart from that, this is how it works. So from a restaurateur point of view, if the rent is linked to your revenue, even if it wasn't for the end of this year, until the end of this year, it needs to be, full stop. There's no argument in this. I mean, the landlords need to understand that there is no one at the doorsteps if we disagree with each other and we move out to get into the place as a next tenant. So the rent needs to be linked to the revenue needs to be transparent, and if this governmental support is continued, then from a restaurateur's point of view, the revenue is linked with rent, linked with this labor cost. A cost of goods sold, already the name suggests, it's a variable cost. Whatever the revenue you make, you generate costs. The rest of our cost departments that are fixed but not variable are minimum, like the energy costs. They are tolerable costs. If the government can actually realize that this is actually the gateway for restaurants to continue with 50% occupation, I think we have a chance to survive until the end of the year. Regarding the credit line, again, we have discussed a possibility with the Minister of Tourism that in order to get these banks into a line and the ones who are not behaving properly, let us spare the potential, whatever the amount that the government Ministry of Finance has reserved for tourism, let us spare it aside and say this is for tourism establishments only. The ones with the document of Ministry of Tourism or the ones that are labeled as hotels or restaurants for touristic purposes. Then the government can chase and see if they have been supported by this fund or not. Otherwise, it's all the rumors spreading around. And one more sentence for that. The fund that the tourism industry needs, the essentials are different than the other industries. If Andrew misses out this season, he loses the whole year. Correct. So the payback system of this fund should not be 6 months, no payback, and then starting payback for up to 36 months, but 12 months, no payment, and then another 36 months. I think at this COVID period, what we need to buy is time. We're not asking for any money without anything in return. We're just asking loans, but we're asking loans in a time manner that we can actually start paying them back.
I agree, Kaya, and also is you mentioned the relation with the rent and the income. So the percentage-based rent is going to be probably very, very important, and it will be at least going to be understood by the individual investors as well as the institutional investors very carefully, and that's going to be the case that will be actually in the future, not only COVID but after post-COVID. Andrew, just a question about the current tourism potential of the Turkey, especially the south coast of Turkey. Do you think that any other especially the one we're looking for the current situation, the local the tourists can be a factor of the increasing the occupancy ratio of these hotels in the short term, and not only just maybe just be very, very tight, mostly for international tourists in those areas. Could it be a possibility to at least to get some more local tourists in the short term or maybe in the medium term for those areas?
Yes, I think that's certainly something that we will focus on. I think that most of the industry in the south will also look the same. We'll obviously have to be a little bit more flexible with pricing, but that's not the only thing. I think that that, you know, in the Turkish market obviously is not getting on a plane anytime soon. So whereas people were traveling abroad the last few years, clearly they'll stay at home. So I think we can attract a lot more from the local market. And I also think that, you know, as long as it's priced accordingly, people will also stay longer. I think people will be much more inclined to drive to Bodrum, for example, or Alaçatay, or even to Antalya if they're going to go for a couple of weeks or longer. And I think that people will be much more inclined to stay longer, family vacations. So all of that means more rooms, longer stay, you know, more this feeling of safety, etc. I think all of the hoteliers will accept that anyway we have to operate at much lower occupancy levels. So if we accept that we're going to have lower occupancy levels and we're going to extend the usual length of stay, then this can at least create you know, occupancy percentages which are at least reasonable. And I think the same will be true in the restaurant business in the resort areas. That obviously, you know, with social distancing, the tables will be more spread, etc., etc. So all of the operators will have to accept that we're going to do less business, but, you know, let it be 50%. And I think, I'm sure Kaya would agree, you know, that would everybody will then survive.
Exactly.
50% is agreed. It's in our pocket already. Fine, done. If you can put it on the table, I'll take it.
Right. Kaya, just another question. Actually, it's just very similar to when you're looking from your side, especially as a restaurateur, and what is going to be after this situation, the COVID situation, for a must-do and the must-don'ts for both restaurateur and mostly for the customers? What is going to be?
Well, thank you for this question, Firuz, because especially the customer side is actually our nightmares at the moment, because we have been active, as I said, on building this document, creating this document, and we know the checklist by heart. We've been in communication, close communication with our members and their executives. So we know the rules, but it is not us who will apply, who will use and make use of those rules. It is the customers that will follow those rules. And this is where it gets scary, because this country has got the smoking ban in the year 2008, where in 2020, it's been more than a decade. And still we have on one side the people who want to break that law, and on the other side the people who are so against to those people who are constantly breaking it. And we, the entrepreneurs, are in between, stuck to find the midway so that everyone is happy. But this is not our job. Our job is to make everyone happy and to give them an experience that is remarkable, worth noting, and memorable, and they come back again. So COVID is a much riskier and more dangerous kind of problem when it is compared to smoking or non-smoking issues. This is about health, on individuals' health. So what we are actually asking on the government and the media and the social media, stop doing anything else and take this into a very serious consideration and start building a campaign where the end user understands that they have to follow these rules. Otherwise, life will be a nightmare for everyone involved, especially our poor working people, because they will be the ones who are left in between. And I hate this word social distancing, because if there is a word distance, I think that means it is anti-socializing. But yes, there will be a distance between tables, two different groups of tables. There will be a regulation saying 1.5 meters. if we are all in the same table dining together, next to each chair, there will be 60 centimeter, almost a small chair size. And when we are looking face to face, a minimum of 1 meter is required.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no limitation of how many people can come as a group to a table. As many as possible, as long as you keep their distances. Is it 50% of our potential capacity that we can only get reservations? No. If you can physically give the distancing measures in correct amounts, you can get up to whatever percentage of occupation you can. But there is a hypothetical trolley, Andrew, walking around tables which is 1.5 meters wide. In fact, some of our guest restaurateurs, friends, colleagues, one of them has suggested that he's going to keep the tables as is, but put one sign on the table that is not for customer use. He will say this is for distancing the two tables that are for customer use. This is for non-customer use. This is COVID distancing table. The same
like
can
a natural barrier. Right?
Yes, because otherwise the distances from one waiter to the other one, okay, we are enlarging the group, can you, it can go to another direction. It gets even more complicated in bars.
Yeah.
What will Andrew do at Maçakızı beach bar? Keep one stool for customer use as a group or individual and one free. And you need to make sure that no one sits on that one. But very important message I want to share with you, all these regulations, this genelge and the certificate will be dynamic. As Andrew suggested, the season can extend. What will happen in July? Who knows? For July, we still have 6-7 weeks to go. Go back 7 weeks from today to the beginning of April. If you remember where we were, so both the certificate, the checklists of the certificate and the genelge document will be a dynamic one. Hopefully, the regulations will start shrinking rather than expanding. This all depends on the performance or non-performance of chap COVID.
Exactly.
By the way, Firuz, I just wanted to say, you know, congratulations to Kaya and all the people involved in creating that checklist, because it's extremely helpful to people that are either, you know, whether they're looking for the certification or not. You know, that's a great guide to what people need to be doing.
Thank you.
Exactly, and it's not. I believe that it's not going to just for post-COVID, but also just the post the time of the or future of the gastronomy sector, which is very important.
Let me touch base on that area. I did forget to mention that. Yes, I see that part as an opportunity. I think this government has proven a great success, touch wood, with COVID as well. The tourism of health-related traveling has been very strong for Turkey.
Yes.
If we put these two on top of each other and the performance of COVID and going out of COVID period, if we can touch on the basis of traceability, good food, decent food issues, link the certificate to the Ministry of Agriculture as well, I think for the long term, Turkey can come to a higher level of trust and safety in terms of food and food-related issues.
And which is very important also for tourism and gastronomy both.
Yes.
Okay, guys. Well, my last question for both of you is going to be the same structure. Andrew, it's for you first. Is this natural disruption, which is COVID, it gives an opportunity for Turkish hospitality sector to restructure and create a value-added hospitality sector instead of just volume-based sector?
I think there is opportunity for that, but again, you know, in the short term, I'm not sure, but in the medium term, yes. I think that it will, as Kaya mentioned, you know, business coming from Northern Europe, Scandinavia, it definitely represents changing the model to be more, I think, active and more active tourism. I think, you know, there's certain amounts of that going on in Turkey, but I think that's a much bigger opportunity for whether it's mountain climbing or hiking, or, you know, there's opportunities to get away from the traditional lying on the beach, all-inclusive concept, and being a little bit more creative. The same is true for Asian business. I mean, for everybody, really. So there's opportunities to do that. What we talked about in cities before, changing the models of the hotels, certainly. But I think time will tell.
Exactly, exactly. And Kaya, how about you? That's it's the same question for the gastronomy right now. What this natural disruption gives an opportunity.
Yes, well, I think I did answer to your question without knowing that this question was going to be risen. But I do believe it's been only 8 weeks that we have been locked down.
Correct.
And we're talking about tourism and F&B industry to rebound by mid-June, or say July the 1st. There's another 6-7 weeks. People are going nuts in houses. Andrew, the ladies who have purchased their expensive shoes or bags, they're carrying it from living room to the bedroom. It doesn't help. They need social places. They need our places to go out and to see and to be seen and get socialized. Whether with distance, minimum or maximum or regulated distances, they need these places. So I do believe if the two words are handled correctly, the confidence of places, establishments, and the trust they are messaging to their end users, there will be a revenge traveling and revenge spending. So the future is bright. It's a matter of getting there before getting too much damaged or further damaged.
Exactly. And there are a couple of questions. And if the oldest participants right now, they can also just present their questions through their microphone, if it's possible, or I can actually read a couple of questions from here. One is just, you already answered to question, Mr. Demirer. Do you think the hotel restaurant should subject to certification? You answer it, yes.
Yes.
It is going to be. And another question from Attila. What will be the rate strategy if you're all running at 50% of the occupancy and the cost, especially if you all target local guests who had many economical issues during the more after the COVID-19? So this is another question for both of you, probably.
Okay, thanks, Alp, my ex-colleague, for the question. How are you doing? I mean, listen, I picked a number when I said 50%. I think this is all really, and I'm sure Kaya would agree, it's all about survival mode. I mean, if any business in this environment can operate at 50% capacity and at the same time reduce their operating costs from what used to be to at least be in a break-even situation, keep their people employed, you know, it's going to be tough. But I just think that's better than shutting down. And I think in hotels, in city hotels as well as resorts, it will be really about, you know, reducing costs to essential customer-driven needs. You know, eliminate. You know, we've all been in cost-saving exercises with hotel companies, but you know, this time we're really going to have to, you know, look inward and what are we doing and who are we doing it for, and what's really the needs of the customer. I think that's going to be the way forward, both in hotels and in restaurants.
Okay. Ozan, can you please unmute all the microphones so just participants can ask the questions?
Can I these rates issues or the pricings in restaurants? Okay, Firuz, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
Okay, this unmuting did not work.
Okay.
Well.
Yes, looks like that. Ozan,
If you can
just
mute everyone, but if anyone wants. Now, I think for the pricing strategy of restaurants, first of all, there has been a kind of devaluation of 15 to 20%. We do not know yet what will be the costs of the food and drinks that while we are opening, how much we pay for those. At the moment, nothing is moving, so we have not got much of an idea on that area. But I think the supply and demand will meet at a point where it is affordable. Otherwise, there's always, the demand can always punish the supply. But from hotels' perspective, I think it may well be an opportunity for our local guests and even international guests, for COVID reasons only in 2020, can be lower rates for rooms than any regular season. This is my gut feeling. I don't know if Andrew would approve this or not.
No, I agree. That's exactly the way we're looking, particularly in the local market. And it's really, you know, the strategy right now is for survival.
Yes.
any more questions? Then I'm looking that the people are not actually. Oh, just one question from Andrew. Andrew, Mr. Jacobs, as we all know, spas of the hotels are also revenue generating centers. Do you have any ideas about the spa business? I'm suggesting what's going to be in the future.
From what I understand, it will be possible in the short term to operate spas. We are choosing at Maçakızı not to do that this season. We feel that once there'll be limited demand in our particular hotel. I think that will be different in other properties, but I think it's extremely complicated to do that operation effectively and also quite costly. So some hotels I know are going to do that. We've actually chosen not to, and hopefully rebound next year.
Firuz, I do have a comment on this. Please. I'm afraid, although it's not my area of expertise. Unfortunately, Andrew is mistaken. Even the document Genelge initially, I repeat again, it may change in a couple of weeks' time, but initially, even with Genelge, forget the certificate, at the bare minimum standards, spas will not be allowed to be functioning. Not in any hotel.
Spas and hammam, I believe, right?
We made the right decision.
Yes, your decision. You may have overheard it from someone. Someone must have whispered it to you.
Yes.
Another question from Mr. Christian Gradnizer. What are your 3 top focus points operational within the near future? For both of you, I believe.
I'll do my part.
Go on.
I think we will do more go local with products, and definitely go with the right seasonal products. And we will try to build a better image of actually reaching to the needs of the individuals. These individuals, I mean the guests' needs, they can be more COVID purposes or reasons. So I think that for a short period of time, we will face different needs from different people, because people will react differently once they start moving out. What is mostly important is to focus on giving them an experience, which in theory, before they leave their homes to come to a restaurant dining experience, they know that it's going to be not an easy one. So we have to pay them back by appreciating the fact that they're traveling and taking to a certain amount of risk. We have to give them a remarkable experience. I think that is the main focus. The second and the third is going local and seasonal.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think, you know, first and foremost for us will be will be safety and making sure that we meet all of the guidelines, and even going further than that, organising that people feel safe and secure here. You know, Sahir and I talk a lot about, you know, at the beginning, it's all going to be about nurturing people. People are nervous, they want to get out, but they want to feel safe. So that's really our, I would say, our 1, 2, 3 focus. And I agree with Kaya about, you know, adapting ourselves to what's really necessary and for the local market.
Okay, thank you. Alp, you can unmute your microphone and then ask your question, please.
Well, hey everybody. Andrew, that's nice to see you after so long time, huh? Great.
Too.
Well, I think I have the only one with the mask because I'm still working in the hotel, even though the hotel is closed. But we have 60 health workers here staying with us, so we just have to have this mask. Regarding these rates and hotels, I think that might be a good opportunity for the resort hotels. This COVID, because of this Spain and Italy and France, you know, they're gonna lose a lot of business. So that might be good for even increasing the rates in the resort hotels. But I'm working in a city hotel. But for the city hotels, as we are working with the corporate accounts, that's not very easy to lower the rates, and then after 3 months or 4 months, you know, it increase again. So I think many of the city hotels' rate strategy will be still same as long as they will see how the market is going on. But I think that might be a good opportunity for the resort hotels to increase the rates, as we lost a lot in 2016. So thanks God, in some sense that, you know, the rates will be increasing for the resort hotels. So that's my comment. I just want to get into the comment.
No, I think Alp, that's actually a very good point. And really, what I was referring to was the short term and medium term for the local market. I think we have to be quite flexible in trying to bring in, you know, whatever possible volume there is. I agree with you. You know, September, for example, even if we go further south, in October, even into November, can be a completely different ball game for international markets, because you know, Northern and Western Europe may be very much in play by then, and you know, demand could be very, very high. So I think you're absolutely right.
I think especially the German market will come very soon, I guess.
Correct.
I think Christmas and New Year's Eve time could be also very big potential for Istanbul and Cappadocia.
Also true. Also true.
But also all this depending on the air travel and the air safety measures that we don't know yet.
Definitely.
So it's going to be another subject of another panel, probably. That's completely other issues. Okay, do you have any more questions from audience, please? Okay, another question, written one. What will be the situation of all-inclusive practices, which is the unless inclusive? It has been devastating hospitality sector, especially in the southern region. Do you expect any changes both in short and long run after COVID? From Ms. Shil Aksoy. Andrew, your views.
I think short term, that is a challenge. I mean, we're not in that business really, because I just think, you know, many of the hotels that do that are large, are the big boxes, you know, and so I think they'll be limited in, you know, part of the business model of those operations is volume, so they'll have a challenge with volume. Obviously, major scale buffets is another challenge. So I think Kaya can probably speak to that. But I think in general, in the short term, there's a lot of challenges associated with the all-inclusive. And I mean, in my opinion, it may be an opportunity that we can revisit that whole concept.
I agree in terms of restructuring the all-inclusive tourism. I think again the way G side of it can be an opportunity after facing this summer. I mean, before facing this summer, nothing can be changed. because this will take time for establishments to adopt. And we do need that volume as well. I mean, yes, we are saying that the average spend per tourist can only be increased with more boutique hotel operation and gastronomy, but the all-inclusive tourism has been helping a lot to build the image of the country as a hospitable country. But what will start this year for sure is there will be restrictions on the buffets. The customer will not be able to go and pick whatever they want with their own hands. There will be a kind of a plexiglass separator between the food and the customers, and they will point what they like, and the kitchen team members will help their filling their plates, and they will get it at the end of the counter. So it will be more like in between Turkish cities where we go and eat from the counter, where we go and pick what we like. So this will essentially destroy the appetite of open buffet principle and concept. And after this summer, I think the hoteliers will sit down and start deciding whether they can get out of this open buffet system as a whole, which can then be the start of reconsidering all-inclusive concepts. Because it can initially be all-inclusive in price, but serving a la carte style food.
Correct.
And then hotels can decide whether, okay, why don't I do it bed and breakfast, or why don't I do it half board and at least try to sell them extra in one course, maybe the dinner. So I think this can be the doorsteps, the footsteps at the door entrance of the whole issue.
Yes, that's a very important point. And also I suggest to all audience to read the report of Turkish Tourism Association, Turkish Tourism Investors Association, the last report regarding the transformation of Turkish tourism scenarios. It's a very good report. Unfortunately, it's on Turkish only right now, but I believe that it also gives an idea what's the difference between the Turkish tourism and the international tourism. Please read it. It's a good one. Do we have another question? Yes, we have another question. It's a long one. I'm going to read you right now. Given that for many customers, restaurants are more about the atmosphere and the experience than the food, will the experience of going to a half-empty restaurant with COVID barriers be sufficiently attractive? Bearing in mind the cost and therefore risks of reopening, might it be better to wait until a higher occupancy is permitted rather than to open at first opportunity? Kaya, it's just for you.
From the financial perspective, definitely. But we also need to think about the needs and the considerations of the end user, the consumers, our guests. As I said, by the end of May or mid-June, when we're open, there will be a great amount of potential who wants to come out and socialize and enjoy themselves, meet friends. So really, until the end of this year, if we do not put anything on top of our negative results, financial results from the previous time, if we do not collect any more debts, I mean, we are all fine. We are very ready to break even only until the end of the year. And 2021 is the one that we think we can start rebounding. So 50%, yes, we will work harder to give you a good experience and atmosphere with half-empty restaurants. But I think psychologically and socially, people will have this in their mindset before they move into a restaurant, before they walk into a restaurant, that they're ready to expect a half-full restaurant or half-empty restaurant. It depends on from which angle you look at the half-glass water.
So Tony, we have to look at the 50% as a half full.
Yes,
exactly. Exactly.
Okay, guys, any more questions for our guests? Looks like that we're done. Okay, we thank you for all our guests, our participants, our audience, and especially thank you to Andrew and Kaya for the opportunity join me for the Tourism and Gastronomy, the Road Ahead webinar. And I hope to see you in the future webinars with the different topics and with the different guests. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Andrew. Say hi.
See you, Kai. I will. Thank you. See you soon.